Vegas Raiders at the Buffalo Bills. The 1-0 Raiders at the 0-1 Bills. The Bills favored by 9.5 here.
9.5.
This is where,
Damn.
Think about all the factors here. The Raiders won by 1 against Denver.
Yep.
And in Denver, right? And Buffalo lost to the Jets in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I know the Aaron Rodgers thing.
Home state.
Same state, that's true.
The only home state.
To me, this is almost just respect for the Jets defense. That Josh Allen having that type of game is as much the Jets defense. It's been this multi-game issue going up against the Jets that the man in Vegas setting the line is saying, all right, that's not an every week occurrence for Josh Allen. Well, I know the stats that are going around, and Josh Allen's last 10 games is 15, however you're slicing and dicing it, and it looks pedestrian. But Josh Allen's not going to have a 49 grade every week with 4 turnover-worthy plays, chucking it into double coverage.
No.
So that's where that line's coming from.
No, sure. There was many concerning things out of that game for Buffalo, but perhaps the biggest was that Josh Allen simply could not control himself from doing anything crazy. Like he was compelled to play like an idiot in a game where he should have been able to go, look, it doesn't even, I can do anything as long as I don't, like the Desmond Ridder approach, simply as long as I don't throw the ball to the defense, we win this game. That's the only way. They had a 10-point lead, and Peyton Manning is on the broadcast pleading with the Jets to not let Zach Wilson throw the ball ever for the rest of the game. And Josh Allen took it upon himself to give them the lead. I'll just keep throwing it back to them until they win. That's essentially what he did in that game. If you can't control yourself under those circumstances, that's not you have no control. You don't have the self-control to stop yourself losing the game.
I've come to the same conclusion as you, and I think a lot of people.
And he has as well. I mean, in the press conference, the dude was crushed that he literally couldn't stop himself doing that.
Here's why the whole thing's a problem, right? There's nuance to all this stuff, right? So the lack of nuance is, finally, Josh Allen looks like he did at Wyoming. This is Wyoming Josh Allen. Well, that's not true. He's not that bad, right? He's not that bad. We've seen a lot of good from Josh Allen. The other end of it is, look at all the turnovers. You can't win with all the turnovers. You could, though. You have, right? Let's not rewrite history.
Right.
The Bills were one of the best teams in the NFL last year, the previous year, and the year before that. They're still probably one of the best teams in the NFL this year. You can win with the Josh Allen turnovers. You can, because you mentioned earlier on the show, because of the greatness that he brings to the table. He's going to create 5 or 6 or 7 chunk plays per game. You can live with the turnovers. At some point, though, what you can't live with is a lack of understanding of game flow and game control. And if Josh Allen wants to be the elite of the elite, there's got to be games where he's conservative. There has to be games. So overall, just like the turnover numbers, can you live with it? Yes. Can you live with turnovers the way they happened in that game? When the Bills could have taken a knee for the rest of the game and punted and won the game. And he decided to throw the ball into double coverage, which is a bad decision. And then he also dropped a snap.
Didn't he do that twice?
He dropped a snap, picked it up, and then fumbled again. Yeah. Those are just unforced errors. That's not decision-making. That's unforced. You're putting the ball on the turf.
And also exposing himself to the kind of hits that, again, in that game of all games, you don't need to do that. Yes, the Jets' defense is nasty, but you have such an advantage. Just don't take that shot. Look, we talked about in the offseason. He understands that he needs to modify the way he plays the game in order to have a long career and become as successful as he and the Bills want him to be. What I think Monday night showed is that he is incapable of making that determination for himself. He is simply a passenger for whatever his mind decides to do in that given play. That's the problem. It's not that you can't live with it, because you can. And there's also the flip side where if he doesn't do that in a given game, which apparently is not within his control, but if he just has a game where he doesn't go crazy and throws the ball to the defense 3 times or whatever, you get a Patrick Mahomes rivaling superstar that can go toe-to-toe with any quarterback in the NFL. But what it is showing is he isn't in charge of when those games happen. He doesn't control whether or not he's going to have a clean, great game, or if bad Josh Allen rushes to the surface and you get this madness just manifest in a way that will ruin you the game. he's right. He said it himself. He's the reason they lost that game. 100% true. Josh Allen cost them that game, and the more concerning element was he wasn't in control over that.
He could not.
He recognized it early.
Yeah.
He knew early, it's happening again, and still couldn't stop himself doing it. That is a big worry.
It absolutely is. That's my biggest takeaway. It goes back to that chart we always reference where the Peyton and Brady. How aggressive are you when you're leading? And then how aggressive are you when you're losing? And when you're leading, aggressiveness goes down. When you're losing, aggressiveness goes up. And it's a perfect curve for the best quarterbacks of all time.
This is not to say that neither Tom Brady nor Peyton Manning ever had bad games or had games that spiraled out of their control or, all these kinds of things. Both of those quarterbacks would have halted the slide halfway through that performance. They would have maybe made the first mistake, maybe made the second mistake, and then they would have gone, what the hell am I doing? We're buttoning this up. We're going in a different direction. I'm going to hand the ball off every play. I'm not going to take any risks whatsoever. I'm not going to be the reason we lose this game. Allen apparently can't stop himself doing that. Like, he doesn't have the self-control to make that call mid-game and stop it getting away from him. That is a massive concern for this Bills team because it means essentially every time they step out onto the field, it's a roll of the dice whether they're going to get that Josh Allen or not.
Now, they're back home.
Yep.
Where they've had those other games where Josh Allen in the first quarter goes 5 for 6 for $150 and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And the Raiders have the type of defense where I think that could happen. I was impressed with the Raiders defense in week 1. They did some really nice things. I still don't really trust their corners against the Bills here. And I don't think Allen's going to lose his aggressiveness because of what happened. He's going to keep chucking it down the field. Now, you just don't throw it in double coverage. Just don't throw it in double coverage. You still, at some point, you have to read the coverage. And don't drop the ball. I don't think he will as much. Raiders look good in week 1.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have. I mean, if one thing goes the other way, we're like, oh, they lost.
Right.
But the defense played pretty tough. Jimmy Garoppolo leads the fourth quarter comeback.
Jimmy G was great. I mean, that's the biggest thing for them. Like, you look at the marriage of, you got rid of your quarterback who was pretty good, and your solution to that was Jimmy G. You're like, that just doesn't feel good, right? It's a fairly underwhelming solution to the problem. I mean, Jimmy G was great. He looked really, really good. And if that, there's this sort of running joke that Jimmy G is the best quarterback in the NFL by EPA per play because of his career, right? I mean, he was again this week, I think. He had the best EPA per play of any quarterback in the NFL with the Raiders. Like, if he is just somehow able to be that guy who has absurd production regardless of on a efficiency basis, that's...
And I'm not trying to take anything away from him because he did play really well. He had a beautiful pass to Jacoby Myers. He had 2 touchdowns to Jacoby Myers, but a third one that could have been put it right on his hands.
And he did that with Devontae Adams losing, quote unquote, the one-on-one battle with Patrick Surtain 2.0, PS2.
Yeah.
Like, he lost. Patrick Surtain got the better of him overall in that game. So this was not like Devontae Adams just balled the hell out and, what could Jimmy G have done other than simply toss the best receiver in the game the ball over and over again and rack up production. He had to do it by himself a lot of the time.
Yeah, and again, I'm not taking anything away from Garoppolo, but I think he stepped into a nice situation because Adams is still a stud, whether he's facing Surtain or not. And Myers is a perfect 2, and Austin Hooper had a really nice catch the other day. Like, there's pieces there. They look good. I'm curious to see the Raiders' run game here against the Bills' run defense. I know the Bills' run D was better last year. It was not good on Monday night against the Jets. They can, anytime, I'll just allow some of those big plays. And I think the Raiders have some opportunities there, maybe for an explosive play or 2 in the run game. I like Buffalo bouncing back. I just don't know about 9.5. That's a lot.
Yeah, I think they bounce back. I don't think Josh Allen has that kind of meltdown 2 weeks in a row, though it is, as I say, a roll of the dice in any given week. So I think they bounce back. If they bounce back, their offense is way too good for the Raiders' defense. But I actually think the Raiders' offense is going to be in reasonable shape. They've got a lot of playmakers, and their offensive line looked really good in week 1. If that line is going to be at that standard all season long, it moved in the right direction fairly consistently all the way through last season. It didn't look great on paper in the offseason, but they were much better week 1. This could be like a decent high-scoring game on both sides, at which point 9.5 is just a lot of points to cover. So I will go with the Raiders covering, probably still losing the game.
Yeah, I'm taking the Raiders covering the 9.5 as well. Take Buffalo to win.